top 5 observations from the weekend.
Boy, there's a lot of Cincinnati fans hoping you do a top 5 Bearcat coaching search.
I will. I have Stanford up there too, so that might be the rest of this week. What I do worry about is I'm going to do it in the morning, and then by the time I get to the afternoon, these things kind of move so fast now that I'll be like the top 5 Stanford coaches. Crap.
Yeah.
It's Bill O'Brien. There you go.
Well,
whatever it is.
Who puts together the graphics?
Emory does.
Well, he's too nice. I thought it was Levi. He's evil. So Emory, I don't want to ever put more on Emory's plate. He has enough.
So, Emory does this. Number 5, something's off at Clemson right now. They look, they're good. They finished the regular season 10-2. They still have a lot of talent on that team. They are, I don't know if it's losing Tony Elliott. I don't know what the situation is there, but something is weird at Clemson why they cannot get over this, and look like Clemson anymore. And I don't think that that they're in their decline, but I do think that Dabo Swinney would be wise to do what he did when he brought in Tony Elliott and those guys and brought in Brent Venables and go maybe outside the family a little bit to spruce up what's going on there. Because they just, all year, they've had so many, well, come on, Clemson, let's get going games, and they just don't look like they used to be.
What was it, a 38-game home winning streak or something that they had, and gets knocked out? But South Carolina's a red-hot team. Who would have thought of that? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, is that overreaction?
I don't think so, because I'm basing it on the whole year of this was a team that was dominating their league and competing for national championships. And all year long, I mean, most people who watch Clemson are like, something's going on here. They don't seem that good.
They're 10-2. And they were 11-2 last year. Mm-hmm. Man, I know a lot of programs that would love that, but then they were the ones who were able to bloody Alabama's nose once and play for a couple of national titles and win a couple of them. Yeah,
I'm just saying that if they don't fix whatever is off, then they're going to be kind of perpetually stuck in this like hamster wheel.
Yeah,
got
to find out what's off first.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's already said it. I think a lot of people have pointed to it, which is that the fact that they need to kind of probably branch out of the Clemson family and the Dabo Clemson tie-ins, that they've all been kind of incestuous, and they need to have some fresh ideas, basically, is what. And I don't know who the first person was to point to that. Many have over the last year or so in particular. And some maybe even forewarned about this, when they started losing coordinators. But, I mean, clearly there's something off. It's not quite the juggernaut that it was, even if it – I mean, you say they're 10-2. Yeah, they're still more talented than most everybody. They didn't lose all their players. Yeah. So what is different? Well, the players might not be as good, like at quarterback. You don't have Trevor freaking Lawrence back there slinging it around, or Deshaun Watson, or, those types of guys. You don't have freaking – stellar receiver after stellar receiver pouring through the doors like you maybe once did upon a time, but they still got more talent than most. And I think it's a little stale. That's what it is. They need to freshen things up and within the walls of that of those football offices, most likely.
And the league's getting a little bit better behind them.
There's that.
They have to worry about that. Number 4, Wisconsin and Nebraska go big with their hires, and I thought that Nebraska would. I did not know about Wisconsin. I thought Wisconsin was going to stay in-house. I think everybody did with Jim Leonard. But addressing the fact that realignment is a major factor in going forward with building a program, and that you're going to have some juice and some excitement. This is important to do that, to get your big hires and get your hires right. And, Luke Fickell, I think at Wisconsin is a perfect fit and a home run hire, and he'll do great there. We've talked about Matt Rhule at length, and everybody knows we have the relationship with him. He was on the show today. But I think that's the one, admitting you got to go big. And then for Nebraska, admitting that you need a builder, not not someone who's going to come in and just, I'll restore the glory years in a couple years, it'll be fine. Somebody who acknowledges that the whole house needs to be rebuilt. That's what Matt Rhule is. In Wisconsin, who's had one down year and they're swinging for the fences with the best group of 5 coach that there was.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, the Rhule Nebraska thing's not entirely surprising. I mean, that's a great gig for him. He's going to have a great setup and a lot of security and some time to build that thing and do it in his own image. Whereas I was a little surprised by Fickell in Wisconsin. Not that I don't think Wisconsin's like a better job overall. It's just like your path at Cincinnati was a lot better, potentially to a playoff. Now, expanded playoff, maybe that doesn't matter. Like that's the thing, is all these variables that rule all these other things out that normally would be issues. But I was a little surprised. It's like all this speculation about Ohio State this or this job and that. It's like Wisconsin. I just don't know anybody that had that pegged. And as you heard earlier, nobody really did. But I will be curious. There's a lot of the whole, well, this is, a sign. And I even said it earlier about the Big Ten and the money difference and how that, I don't think the Wisconsin and Nebraska jobs, though, are necessarily indicative of like that. Like, let me see Indiana go steal somebody from a pretty good program. And then I'll start to really buy into like, all right, it's all about the money now because, it's Wisconsin and Nebraska. I know Wisconsin doesn't necessarily have title after title nationally like Nebraska does hanging up in the rafters, but still a really solid program after a really long period of time. So, yeah, the moment we see Indiana go swipe like the sitting head coach or like Lance Leipold or something, that's when I would really get worried about the disparity.
Yeah. Number 3, and I did write this before the Hugh Freeze thing, but I still kind of think this. Auburn remains an uncontrolled mess. I do think that hiring Hugh Freeze, as far as on the football field, is one of the best things you can do. The guy has had one losing season in 12 years as a college head coach, so he's got a proven track record. I wonder if this will work given the two parties. And I do believe that Hugh Freeze, sure, give him another chance, but I don't. If I were an Auburn fan, I'd be like, fine, but I don't feel confident about how this is going to end.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good football coach. The ending to his Liberty tenure was pretty disastrous just because there's obviously a lot of, injuries, but also a lot of distractions because of him, obviously clearly throwing his name out there for jobs. On the surface, just like not getting into all the off the field stuff, like just as a pure football coach, it seems like a really good hire and probably one of the better ones that you could have made. But yeah, I think all the other stuff, it would give me some pause. I find the dude to just be an outright fraud. I really do. I don't like him. As far as like the vibes I get off of him, I think that he plays the Jesus card way too willy-nilly. And I just don't trust people like that. So I'm not a huge fan of him in that regard, but I will say he's a really good football coach. And if it is in fact a mess, then that's kind of fitting that they hired Hugh Freeze, is it not? I mean, it just kind of goes with it's like the drapes match the carpet, I guess. But yeah, this will be a fascinating little experiment, and and how it goes and what it turns into ultimately. I mean, maybe he's helping once Saban steps down, leading Auburn to the top of the West, competing with Brian Kelly and LSU or whatever. Actually, there won't be a West, will there? Here pretty soon. There won't be. But anyways, maybe he has massive success. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the guy.
You know what he'll do? He'll win there.
Yeah, he'll win.
I don't know about how high of a level. I'm not sure in a national
That's all they care about. Let's
championship,
just admit it.
But he at Auburn, he will win. Hell of a football coach, obviously an individual that has some issues, and he will win at Auburn.
Yeah. Number 2. TCU can taste the CFP. The way that they destroyed Iowa State, I think they very clearly see their goals in front of them. Well, and look, they're going to have a tough game against Kansas State. That's probably the team that, you can argue played them off their feet the most this year and the most for the longest.
Rotation of quarterbacks.
Yeah. And now you're going to have Will Howard the whole time. So that game could be very different. But I do think that game against Iowa State and destroying a really good defense, albeit at the end of their season, kind of shows that they can feel what's in front of them, and they are very locked in.
Yeah, I don't know who I'm picking just yet in that game. I'm kind of leaning TCU, but I can understand everybody that's going the K-State route on this one. Certainly, I do think that's the part that kind of sucks here is that if you're TCU and you lose this game, like you lose 28-27, you can miss the playoff. By losing one game at the end of the year in a conference title to a team you already beat that's top 15 by a point, and you can miss the playoff.
Yep.
I just think that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like, explain to me how that, other than you just needing, like, the gratification of being entranced in every little moment of a game to be entertained, like, you have to be jolted. Like, what? Tell me how that makes any sense.
It doesn't.
I mean, it really doesn't. It's one thing if it was like elimination style playoffs. Okay, you lose a playoff game, but this isn't that. This is, I don't know. I just find that kind of silly for the season that they've had. But yeah, I mean they're knocking on the door. They're one step away, and they do seem like a program that more often than not, when they have the opportunity, they take advantage of it. There's a lot of others that get opportunities, they go 500 or they whiff on a majority of them. In TCU, they seem to answer the call quite often. So good for them. They
beat the living snot out of Iowa State in a game again that, if they would have started tight and played poorly, you get a little bit, you start to hyperventilate. They blew their doors off and never looked back. They look fantastic right now.
Yep. And number 1, Jim Harbaugh has flipped the script. It took him a long time to do it at Michigan, but he owns Ryan Day right now. I mean, he absolutely does those last 2 times around. And, he's always been like, Jim Harbaugh is a peculiar dude. Like, he is different. He runs on a different wavelength than most of us, but it is working at Michigan right now. And now that his little flirtation last year with the Vikings, that's over, it appears that, Michigan is just on this train right now. And he finally got a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, that is kind of a playmaker and not just a game manager. This is, I'm kind of surprised because I really didn't think it would happen because I thought Ohio State would kind of always just be that team with them because of the last 15 years. But, man, the last 2 years have shown you he's not messing around.
I mean, he's a really good football coach. Yeah. Just bottom line, he's a really good football coach and has been for a long time now. I mean, this dude was winning at Stanford when everybody's talking about how hard it is to win at Stanford. I mean, just you can look at various moments in his career for evidence of just what a great coach he is. And, yeah, there's certainly been some pitfalls there and some embarrassing losses, especially to Ohio State. But, Rome isn't built in a day. I mean, that's the thing now is like, what were you going to do? You go fire Jim Harbaugh and go get, who exactly? I think, obviously there was the NFL flirtations. I think those would probably go away now at this point. But I think it's great that both sides ended up settling in and he didn't go anywhere and they didn't balk and, it led to this. So sometimes you got to let situations play out and, they did and it did for whatever reasons. And it seems like they're probably all happy in Ann Arbor right at the moment.
All right, Paul, fantastic. It's great to have everybody.